from history. The words echoed like thunder. Leaders of nations listened in silence. Soldiers gripped their weapons, knowing they could do little against such might. All across Earth, hearts pounded in fear. But then, something changed. Far from Earth, in the black silence of space, the shadows began to move. The signal had already been given. Unleash the Armada. One by one they appeared. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. Black ships, vast and silent, emerging from the void. They moved without a sound, absorbing light. Their forms barely visible except when the stars disappeared behind them. The Black Armada. At first, the Veil sensors struggled to understand what was happening. Readings flickered. Ships appeared where none had been moments before. The alien commander's confident smile slowly faded as more and more human warships poured into view. Thousands of vessels, each armed and ready. The people of Earth saw it too. From the ground, they looked up at the night sky and gasped. Where once alien ships alone had dominated the heavens, now a new presence emerged. Silent shadows rising to meet the invaders. Cheers began to break out. Voices of hope spreading through the streets. Humanity was not alone. They had their defenders. The Veil tried to hide their unease. A trick, the commander muttered, though his eyes betrayed doubt. Yet no trick could summon so many ships. No illusion could hold such silence and strength. And then, for the first time, a human voice spoke across the galactic channels. "Come steady, filled with steel, we do not kneel, not now, not ever." The words rang through space like a blade drawn in defiance. The galaxy beyond listened too. Across distant worlds, oppressed peoples watched the transmission. They had seen many species surrender to the Veil. They had heard endless pleas for mercy, but never had they heard such simple defiance. On Earth, tears fell from the eyes of men and women who had expected death. Children cheered, shouting at the screens. Soldiers stood taller, their fear replaced by fire. Humanity had spoken, and the Armada stood behind their words. The Veil commander clenched his fists. His pride was wounded, his authority challenged in front of the galaxy. Rage burned in his glowing eyes. "Then you will be destroyed," he hissed. The alien fleet shifted into formation, preparing their weapons. Beams of energy gathered at their cannons. The order was about to be given, but the Black Armada did not flinch. Their formation spread across the void, sharp and precise. Their weapons were charged, their engines burning cold. They did not move like a desperate species begging for survival. They moved like warriors who had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. The silence before the storm was heavy. Every heart on Earth beat faster. Every soldier in space gripped their controls. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. And then the first shot was fired. The war for Earth had begun. The first shot tore across the void like lightning. A Veil warship unleashed a beam of searing light, a weapon strong enough to melt a mountain in a heartbeat. It streaked past the Black Armada, missing only because the human ships had moved with impossible precision. And then the sky came alive. Dozens of alien weapons fired at once. Beams of energy, glowing missiles, and plasma storms filled the blackness of space. From Earth below, people saw streaks of light flashing like a second war in the heavens. Some covered their ears even though no sound carried through the void. The sight alone was enough to shake their souls. But the Black Armada did not scatter. They advanced as one, silent shadows cutting through the storm. Their black hulls seemed to drink in the light. Their formations were tight, their maneuvers sharp. These were not ships built for show. They were ships built to survive. Then humanity struck back. The first counterattack came from a group of destroyers. Their cannons roared, hurling projectiles faster than light itself. Massive slugs of metal ripped through space and smashed into Veil shields. The aliens expected the weapons to fail, but the sheer kinetic force shattered defenses like glass. A Veil battleship exploded, torn apart by the violence of simple human steel. The galaxy watching could hardly believe it. No one had ever stood against the Veil this way. Next came the drones. Thousands of them launched from human carriers black as the Armada itself. They swarmed like insects, darting between alien ships, biting with sharp bursts of plasma and ripping through weak points in armor. Veil captains cursed as their ships lit up with alarms. And when the enemy tried to regroup, the Armada rammed. Black cruisers hurled themselves into alien hulls, sacrificing themselves with brutal precision. Pilots gave their lives willingly, whispering only one thing before impact: for Earth. The Veil, masters of 1,000 conquests, had never faced such fury. They were trained to crush resistance, not to face warriors who would rather die than kneel. For every human ship that fell, 2 more struck back harder. For every drone lost, 10 more launched from the shadows. On Earth below, people watched the sky burn. Explosions flashed like new stars, painting the heavens in red and white. Entire families stood outside, holding each other close, praying and crying. Every blast was both terror and hope. Every flare of light meant someone's child, someone's parent, someone's sacrifice. But it also meant Earth was still fighting. In underground bunkers, commanders listened to reports with grim faces. Losses were heavy, but the Armada was holding. Against all reason, against all expectation, humanity was standing toe-to-toe with an empire that had crushed countless worlds. The Veil commander snarled in rage. His pride could not accept what his eyes saw. He ordered his fleet forward, demanding that they break the humans with overwhelming fire. But the harder they pushed, the more resistance they met. Because the Armada was not just a fleet. It was the spirit of a people. Every shot carried centuries of struggle. Every strike carried the pain of wars fought on Earth's soil, of revolutions against tyrants, of generations that had suffered and risen again. The humans were not simply fighting for survival. They were fighting for every ancestor who had refused chains, for every child who deserved to live free. The battle became a storm. Ships shattered, flames lit the void, and debris rained down into Earth's atmosphere like fiery meteors. But still, the Armada did not break. On Earth, people began to chant. In the streets, in shelters, in homes lit by trembling lights, they shouted one word together, their voices carrying like thunder. Fight! 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 And in the heavens above, the Black Armada answered. The destruction of the planet Cracker changed everything. The light of that explosion still burned in the eyes of both humans and aliens. For Earth, it was hope reborn. For the Veil, it was the first taste of fear. The Black Armada pressed forward. Their ships were battered, scarred, and some were burning, but they moved with a power no empire could understand. Every formation was sharp, every strike precise. Humanity had become a storm, and nothing in its path could stand for long. The Veil counterattacked with desperation. Their fleets surged, firing everything they had. Plasma storms, missiles of light, cutting beams that could slice through asteroids. But the Armada did not break. Human ships danced between fire, drones swarmed through enemy gaps, and railguns thundered with endless fury. It was no longer just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of will. On Earth, billions of eyes turned toward the sky. Transmission feeds showed the war above. Streets were filled with people staring at giant screens, holding their breath at every flash. When a human ship fell, cries filled the air. When a Veil warship exploded, cheers erupted like thunder. For the first time, humanity stood united, not by borders, not by flags, but by survival. They shouted together, their voices echoing through cities and shelters into bunkers and farmlands. Fight! 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 And those voices reached the Armada. Pilots heard the chants. Captains heard the roar of their people. Soldiers, tired and wounded, felt their strength return. Humanity itself had become a weapon, every heart beating with the fleet. The Veil commander was furious. He slammed his fist into the armrest of his throne, sparks flying around him. This is impossible, he growled. Never before had insects resisted his empire. Never before had a world refused to kneel and lived. But the humans were not merely surviving. They were pushing his forces back. Across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcast. The Veil had made their ultimatum public to show their dominance. Instead, their humiliation was spreading like wildfire. On enslaved worlds, whispers grew louder. On hidden colonies, secret rebellions began to stir. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw that the Veil could bleed. And it was humanity that had made them bleed. The night sky above Earth was no longer filled with stars. It was filled with shadows. Colossal warships of the Veil Dominion, stretching miles in length, floated in orbit like dark mountains in the heavens. Their hulls glowed faintly with alien energy, sharp lines cutting against the void. People on the surface looked up in fear as the alien fleet blotted out the sun during the day and turned night into a deeper darkness. For thousands of years, Earth had believed itself alone. Humanity had built rockets, satellites, telescopes, and dreamed of the stars. They had wondered if they were the only ones. That dream ended the moment the Veil arrived. The galaxy was not empty, it was ruled. And Earth had just been discovered by its masters, The message came quickly, translated into every human tongue. The Veil Commander appeared on screens across the world. His body was tall, wrapped in armor that shimmered with cruel light. His eyes glowed cold blue, his face carved with disdain. He spoke with the certainty of one who had conquered countless worlds before. "Kneel," the Veil said. His voice was deep, echoing across every broadcast, every city square, every home. "Submit your planet. Hand over your resources. Your soldiers will become our soldiers. Your children will become our property. Refuse and we will burn your world until nothing remains but ashes." The words cut through humanity like a blade. Fear spread faster than fire. People in cities gathered in silence, watching screens with pale faces. Mothers clutched their children. Soldiers gripped their weapons with shaking hands. Leaders of nations met in hurried councils, some voices trembling with panic, others whispering about surrender. Could Earth fight them? The alien ships in the sky were vast, glowing with weapons that could erase cities with a single shot. Humanity's armies, tanks, and jets felt like toys in comparison. Even Earth's most powerful nuclear missiles looked like sparks against a hurricane. Some leaders argued it was better to survive in chains than to be wiped out in pride. Better to kneel, they said, than to vanish. But deep inside the hearts of many, something stronger stirred. Humanity had known hardship before. They had endured wars, plagues, hunger, and storms. They had fallen many times in history, and each time they had risen again. Chains were not new to mankind. Empires had tried to break them before. Tyrants had tried to rule them before. Every time humanity had fought back. Now, staring at the sky filled with alien warships, the question was not whether Earth was strong enough. The question was whether Earth was willing to bow. Across the world, ordinary people whispered the same answer: no. In the United Nations chamber, leaders gathered in silence as the ultimatum was repeated once more by the alien commander: kneel or be destroyed. The room was filled with fear but also fire. Representatives from nations that had once been enemies stood shoulder to shoulder. Old rivalries meant nothing when the entire human race stood on the edge of extinction. For the first time in history, the nations of Earth spoke with one voice, and the answer was defiance. A single message was sent back to the alien fleet. It was short, simple, and carried the weight of billions of souls behind it. Earth does not kneel. The Veil laughed when they received the reply. To them, humans were insects, loud but fragile. They believed Earth's pride was foolish, its resistance meaningless. They had no idea what humanity had hidden in the dark. For while Earth had dreamed of peace, it had also prepared for war. Not loudly, not proudly, but quietly. In the shadow of asteroids, inside hollow moons, and deep within the black silence of the solar system, something had been built in secret. A weapon, a shield, a promise. The galaxy would soon learn its name: the Black Armada. When the Veil laughed at Earth's refusal, they believed the story had already ended. To them, humanity was weak, a species that had only just stepped into space. What the aliens did not know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for decades. Humanity had always dreamed of the stars, but they had also feared them. The first signals from deep space, the first glimpses of strange anomalies, the strange whispers of possible life beyond, these had told humanity one simple truth: they were not alone. And if they were not alone, then one day someone might come. So humanity prepared. Not openly, not with banners and parades. They built in silence. They hid their progress from their own people, and especially from watching eyes beyond the system. What they created was not a navy for exploration, but an armada for survival. It began small. At first, hidden shipyards inside asteroids, mining operations that were never recorded in public ledgers, drones carrying metals to secret locations, scientists working in silence, never sharing their work outside trusted circles. Generations of soldiers, engineers, and thinkers sworn to secrecy, building something greater than themselves. And what they built became known by whispers among the few who knew: the Black Armada. It was a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships crafted from black alloys that drank in starlight, making them nearly invisible in the void. Hulls coated with materials that confused sensors and swallowed signals. Entire battle groups that could hide in the darkness of space, waiting like predators. These ships were not designed for beauty. They were not painted with colors or polished for show. They carried no bright banners, no golden crests. They were built for one purpose: to endure, and to strike back when humanity's survival was threatened. Every ship was a monument to sacrifice. Engineers worked their whole lives in secret stations, never seeing the Earth they protected. Pilots trained in hidden simulators buried under mountains. Families never knew where their sons and daughters had gone, only that they had vanished into service. They were told one truth before they left. One day, the sky will darken, and when that day comes, you will rise. Now that day had come. As the Veil ships circled Earth, confident in their superiority, quiet signals spread across the solar system. Codes long hidden in satellites activated. Doors inside hollowed moons slid open. Dark shapes asleep for years began to stir. From the shadows of Jupiter's orbit, massive hangars unsealed. Black ships drifted out, their engines whispering to life. From the asteroid belt, entire fleets emerged, rising like a storm. From beyond Neptune, long-range carriers turned their bows toward Earth. In silence they gathered, thousands upon thousands of ships, each one scarred from the labor of construction, each one ready for war. The Veil had brought their fleets into Earth's skies, believing themselves to be hunters. But now the hunters were about to realize they had walked into the lair of something far more dangerous. On Earth, most people did not know what was happening. They saw alien warships above and felt only fear. But in hidden command centers, generals and admirals who had waited their whole lives finally stood tall. Their voices carried steady over comms, "Unleash the Armada." The order was simple, but its meaning was vast. It was the sound of chains being broken before they were even placed. The Black Armada began to move. Ships spread like shadows across the void, thousands of silent wings rising to defend their homeworld. Their hulls swallowed the light, their formations sharp and merciless. In that moment, Earth was no longer just a small blue planet. It was a fortress. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity had been underestimated. They were not prey. They were not weak. They were survivors, forged in fire, prepared in silence, and ready to fight with everything they had. The Veil thought they had come to conquer. What they had truly done was awaken the Black Armada. The Veil Dominion had always been certain of its power. They ruled over 1,000 worlds, and on each world their demand had been the same: surrender or die. Never before had anyone dared to refuse them. Until Earth. When humanity's message of defiance reached the Veil fleet, the alien commander laughed. To him, this was nothing but noise, an insect buzzing before being crushed. He ordered his warships closer, their shadows growing darker over the blue planet below. Cities trembled as the alien fleet shifted into lower orbit. People on the ground could see them now with their own eyes, giant shapes in the sky glowing with deadly light. Children pointed with fear, asking if the monsters were real. Parents had no answer, for they too were afraid. Then the Veil broadcast once more. The commander's image appeared across every screen, his armored body filling the view. His voice was cold, carrying the weight of a predator certain of victory. "You have one last chance," he said. "Kneel, and we may spare a portion of your kind. Refuse, and you will vanish for..." The Black Armada fought with more than weapons. They fought with memory. They remembered every war of Earth's past, every tyrant who tried to rule, every grave dug for freedom. Each shot carried history's weight. Each sacrifice echoed generations of struggle. A squadron of human frigates broke through enemy lines, diving deep into the heart of the Veil fleet. Alien commanders screamed in panic as human ships tore their formation apart. Another group of bombers released swarms of kinetic weapons, ripping through enemy shields. Black cruisers circled like wolves, cutting down prey one by one. The Veil tried to adapt, but the humans adapted faster. They had always been survivors, learning quickly, finding weaknesses, striking where no one expected. The Armada was not bound by rigid traditions like the Veil. It was alive, flexible, dangerous. Every passing hour, the battle tilted further. The once proud Dominion fleet, confident in its supremacy, now found itself shrinking, retreating, breaking. On Earth, tears mixed with cheers. People clung to each other, whispering prayers and shouting victory at the same time. They knew many of their defenders would never return, but they also knew something greater. Humanity had proven itself. They were not prey. They were not slaves. They were free. And above, in the heavens, the Black Armada answered the roar of Earth with fire. By the third day of battle, the outcome was clear. The Veil were losing. The galaxy would never forget the sight. A single world once thought weak, standing against an empire with nothing but courage, sacrifice, And will humanity had unleashed its true voice, and its roar shook the stars. The battle stretched into its final hours. Space was littered with burning wreckage, drifting bodies of metal and fire. The Veil fleet, once proud and endless, was now broken into scattered pieces. Their mighty warships, feared across the stars, were either destroyed or fleeing. At the center of it all, the Black Armada still stood. Their hulls were scarred, their shields failing, but their spirits were unshaken. Humanity had refused to kneel, and the galaxy now witnessed the cost of that defiance. The Veil commander gave one last order, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "Retreat! Retreat!" His empire had never spoken that word before. Yet now, under the roar of humanity, the unthinkable had happened. The hunters were running, and the prey had risen to strike. On Earth, cities erupted in celebration. Crowds filled the streets, waving banners, holding hands, crying, laughing, shouting. Children who once hid in fear now danced under the sky. Families that prayed for survival now saw victory with their own eyes. It was not just a military triumph. It was proof of who they were. They were humanity. They had survived everything their world had thrown at them: ice, fire, war, famine, disease. They had risen again and again. And now, against an empire older and stronger, they had risen once more. In the command ship of the Armada, Admiral Reyes stood silent for a long time. Around him, his officers cheered, hugged, and wept. But the Admiral's eyes were fixed on the wreckage outside. He knew the victory was costly. Thousands of ships were gone. Millions of souls had been lost in the void. He whispered a quiet vow to himself. "We will remember them. Every single one, the fallen had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had saved Earth. Their courage had awakened something far greater than victory. It had awakened hope across the stars. Because as the Veil retreated, transmissions from other worlds began to pour in. Colonies under Veil rule sent secret messages. "We saw your fight. We believe." Enslaved races whispered, "If Earth can stand, so can we." Hidden fleets stirred. Silent rebellions began to awaken. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had lit a fire across the galaxy. The name Black Armada spread like thunder. To the Veil, it became a curse, a shadow that haunted their empire. But to the oppressed, it was a symbol of freedom. The image of human ships cutting through impossible odds became a story told in hushed voices, then shouted in open rebellion. Back on Earth, as the first dawn rose after the battle, people gathered in silence. They raised their eyes to the heavens, knowing their defenders were still out there among the stars. Many ships would never return, but their memory had become eternal. Children would grow up hearing their names. Songs would be sung about them. Humanity had carved its place in history with fire and blood. Admiral Reyes finally spoke to Earth through the global broadcast. His voice was tired, heavy with the weight of loss, but it carried the pride of an entire world. Today, the Veil demanded that we kneel. We answered not with silence, but with thunder. We showed them who we are. We are humanity. We do not bow. We do not break. We fight for freedom, for home, for each other. And let the galaxy remember this day, the day humanity stood as one. The world listened in silence, then roared with a sound that shook cities. Tears fell, fists rose, voices cried out in triumph. Humanity had found its unity, its strength, and its destiny. The Black Armada sailed on into the stars, no longer just defenders of Earth, but bearers of a greater promise. Wherever chains were bound, they would come. Wherever tyrants rose, they would stand against them. The galaxy had wanted Earth to kneel. Instead, humanity had risen and unleashed the Black Armada, and the stars would never be the same again.